My name is Emma Winters, and there was a time when I genuinely believed my life was perfect. As a well-respected editor at one of New York's most prestigious publishing houses, my days were filled with glamorous literary events, lavish galas, and meetings with best-selling authors. Yet the one thing that truly made me feel complete wasn't my successful career. It was Lucas Gray, the charismatic, brilliant young lawyer who had won my heart. We had been together for 3 blissful years, long enough to finish each other's sentences, short enough for every touch to still send sparks down my spine. The night Lucas proposed on a rooftop overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline, I thought fairy tales could come true after all. I'll never forget the moment he slipped the shimmering diamond ring onto my finger, promising me forever. At that instant, I was utterly blind to the fact that this fairy tale perfection was merely a beautiful facade concealing a darker truth beneath. Only weeks later, we threw a glamorous engagement party at the Plaza Hotel. I wore a silk ivory dress that flowed gracefully with every step, my golden hair cascading down my shoulders. Lucas stood proudly at my side, handsome and charming as always in his tailored navy suit, introducing me to his powerful circle of friends and clients. The party brimmed with influential faces, politicians, actors, elite businessmen, but among the hundreds present, my heart warmed most at seeing Sophia Hart. Sophia wasn't just the rising Hollywood star adored by millions. She was my best friend since college, my confidant, someone I trusted implicitly. Sophia arrived looking every bit the superstar, captivating the room effortlessly in a sleek black gown that hugged her every curve. She flashed her signature dazzling smile as she embraced me warmly, whispering affectionately into my ear, "Emma, this is your moment. You deserve all the happiness in the world." At that moment, her words felt genuine and touching, completely hiding the chilling deception behind them. As the evening unfolded, laughter mingled effortlessly with the elegant melodies from the live band. While I was chatting with a prominent TV producer, I suddenly noticed Lucas and Sophia had disappeared from the crowded ballroom. A strange unease twisted inside my chest, whispering anxiously that something was very wrong. Attempting to brush it aside, I tried to focus back on the conversation, but the gnawing feeling persisted, forcing me to search for them. The further I moved away from the main party, the louder my heartbeat echoed in my ears, drowning out the festive sounds behind me. Then I heard faint whispers from a closed door down the dim hallway. My blood ran cold the moment I recognized Lucas's voice mixed intimately with Sophia's quiet laughter. "Relax, Lucas. Emma will never suspect a thing." Sophia's voice, soft yet brutally cold, pierced the thin silence. Lucas chuckled darkly, responding in a voice I'd never heard before, callous and filled with mockery. "Emma's so trusting, so naive. She believes every lie we tell her." Their laughter rang softly through the hallway, each sound like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. My perfect life shattered into 1,000 pieces. At that instant, every shard painfully embedding itself in my soul. My trembling hand reached instinctively toward the doorknob but stopped abruptly. A fierce pride restrained me from bursting through that door, screaming and confronting them. The depth of betrayal had stunned me into a cold, quiet fury. Instead, I stood there, frozen, swallowing the agony, silently allowing it to fuel a plan that quickly began forming in my mind. They had chosen to humiliate me on the happiest day of my life, and I would repay them in kind, but not with mere hysterics. No, I would meticulously, quietly dismantle their lives, piece by painful piece. Moments later, I returned to the party, my lips curling into a calm, practiced smile as though nothing had changed. Lucas and Sophia soon emerged, laughing easily, acting innocent, as if nothing had happened at all. Sophia approached, placing her hand warmly on my shoulder, playing her part flawlessly. "Emma, everyone's been looking for you. Where did you disappear to?" I looked directly into her eyes, smiling gently, masking my bitter contempt behind practiced composure. "Oh, I just stepped outside for some fresh air. Thanks for always looking out for me." And with those words, I committed to the silent war that had just begun. Sophia Hart and Lucas Gray had unknowingly ignited a fire within me. I promised myself in that instant they had stolen my trust, my heart, and my dreams. But I would take from them everything else they held dear. They had no idea that from this moment forward, nothing in their lives would ever be the same again. They had lost me, but soon they would lose so much more. In the weeks following that devastating night, I discovered something powerful about betrayal. It awakens a part of you that's both cunning and ruthless. I became an expert in the art of masking emotions, smiling through dinners with Lucas, laughing easily during brunches with Sophia. Both continued their charade effortlessly, completely unaware that I had unraveled their secrets. I found comfort, strangely enough, in plotting my silent revenge. The more they lied, the more determined I became. Each day my resolve hardened, turning grief into strategic clarity. I meticulously documented everything: photos, text messages, security footage, every trace of their secret meetings, now filled a discreet folder carefully hidden beneath a floorboard in my study. Sophia's rise to stardom had been swift and dazzling, built largely on her carefully curated public image, one of kindness, innocence, and sincerity. It was a facade I knew exactly how to shatter. She had entrusted me with secrets over the years, deep vulnerabilities she'd hidden even from Lucas. Now those confidences became weapons. I knew where every skeleton was buried, every scandal waiting to erupt. Quietly, methodically, I planted subtle hints, passing along tiny whispers of her true character to influential contacts, anonymous emails, and carefully disguised conversations. Rumors began to circulate softly, at first hints that America's sweetheart wasn't exactly as sweet as she appeared. Within weeks, Sophia's pristine reputation started to crumble. Major sponsors withdrew quietly, claiming scheduling conflicts or restructuring, but everyone knew better. Her publicist scrambled to maintain damage control as gossip blogs speculated wildly about her backstage tantrums, demanding attitude, and whispered infidelities with influential men. And throughout it all, I played my role perfectly. I remained her compassionate friend, the voice of reason, during those late-night phone calls filled with panic and disbelief. "Who would do this to me?" Sophia sobbed one evening, her voice shaky and broken. "Someone's clearly out to ruin me." I held the phone calmly, sipping tea, allowing silence to hang for a beat. "Sophia, it's the industry." I comforted her gently, masking the satisfaction in my voice. "Maybe you've upset someone without realizing it. Don't worry, I'll always stand by you." Each conversation was sweetened by my subtle venom, feeding her anxiety and paranoia. The more Sophia spiraled, the closer she pulled me into her dwindling circle of trust. Lucas, observing Sophia's rapid downfall, began to distance himself from her. Predictably, his instinct for self-preservation kicked in. Suddenly, the passionate secret affair wasn't worth risking his own rising career. He redirected his charm back towards me, attempting to mend any cracks he might have caused. Unaware I'd already seen through every calculated gesture, "Emma," he whispered one evening, wrapping his arms around me as I stood overlooking the city skyline. His voice carried just enough sincerity to fool someone less wounded. "I feel like we've drifted lately. I can't lose you." I turned slowly, studying his handsome features carefully. His blue eyes sparkled convincingly, trained through years of courtroom manipulation. I forced a gentle smile, placing a reassuring hand on his chest. "Lucas, you haven't lost me. Everything's fine." But behind that reassurance was a hidden layer of ice. He couldn't see a layer I allowed to thicken with each deceptive word he spoke. I watched him closely, noting every false display of affection, each calculated move designed to pull me back into his carefully orchestrated illusion. Meanwhile, Sophia's debts piled up. Without the lucrative endorsements that once filled her accounts, her lavish lifestyle became unsustainable. Her luxurious Manhattan penthouse, a symbol of her triumph, went quietly onto the market, sold off discreetly to pay mounting debts. When I saw the real estate listing appear online, I knew it was time for the next decisive move. Through a carefully orchestrated arrangement involving my attorney and a discreet shell company I'd established, I anonymously acquired Sophia's prized penthouse, buying it swiftly and quietly, without raising a single suspicion. That evening, after closing the deal, I stood alone in the vast apartment, watching the sun set over Central Park through the panoramic windows Sophia had once bragged endlessly about. As I glanced around the empty rooms, a fierce wave of satisfaction surged through me. Sophia had taken from me the love and happiness I'd cherished, but now I had taken her sanctuary, her refuge, her home. And this was just the beginning. Sophia's last glimmer of hope lay in a coveted movie role she'd secured months ago. The kind of career-defining role that could restore even the most tarnished reputation. Filming was scheduled to start in just a few weeks. But unfortunately for Sophia, I had carefully saved my most devastating secret for last, undeniable proof of her affair with Lucas. I knew exactly how to deliver that final blow to reveal her hypocrisy publicly, while remaining safely hidden behind layers of plausible deniability. Soon, Sophia Hart, Hollywood's brightest star, would discover just how dark things could truly get when someone she underestimated took control of her fate. And Lucas, he was about to witness firsthand the extent of my determination, the cold precision with which I could dismantle their lives piece by carefully planned piece. I smiled softly, standing alone in Sophia's empty penthouse as the sky darkened into night. Betrayal had created the monster I'd become, and now there was no turning back. This wasn't merely revenge, this was justice meticulously balanced and elegantly executed. They had broken my heart. Now I was about to break their world. Revenge, I realized, is not just about the moment of triumph, it's about watching every brick in your enemy's carefully built fortress collapse into rubble. Piece by deliberate piece, Sophia's life had rapidly spiraled into chaos. Every morning, tabloids ran scathing headlines about her entitled attitude, secret meltdowns, and mysterious financial ruin. The industry's darling had become its pariah overnight, with paparazzi capturing every stumble, every desperate attempt at damage control. But as far as the world knew, I remained her loyal friend, standing by her, publicly comforting her privately. My sympathy, however, was the most powerful weapon of all. The more she relied on me, the deeper I could twist the knife without her noticing. One afternoon, she appeared at my apartment disheveled and tear-streaked, clutching a bottle of wine as if her life depended on it. "Emma, I don't know what to do," she sobbed, collapsing dramatically onto my plush sofa. "Everyone has abandoned me. My manager, my publicist, even Lucas." Her voice broke sharply when she said his name. It was the first time she'd openly acknowledged their relationship to me, although I had known for months. I offered her a glass, quietly letting her confession linger in the air. "I never meant for this to happen," she continued softly. "Lucas promised me everything, told me he'd leave you, that we'd start fresh together. But now he won't even return my calls." She paused, her desperate eyes seeking comfort from mine. My expression remained carefully composed, betraying no emotion other than calm concern. "Sophia," I said, voice soft yet firm, "Lucas isn't the kind of man who risks his reputation for anyone. Trust me, I know him." She looked up, puzzled by the subtle bitterness that slipped through my words. "You deserve someone who truly values you," I added smoothly, offering a gentle, comforting touch on her shoulder. "And maybe, just maybe, this crisis is an opportunity for you to learn who your real friends are." Sophia nodded weakly, completely oblivious to the irony of my words. She trusted me entirely now, and that blind faith would soon prove fatal. Meanwhile, Lucas, the man whose betrayal had ignited all this chaos, grew increasingly uneasy as Sophia's scandal intensified. Sensing danger, he attempted again to mend our fractured relationship. He became even more attentive, showering me with expensive gifts, lavish dinners, and promises that everything would go back to how it once was. But each false apology, each grand gesture only strengthened my resolve to destroy him alongside Sophia. Watching Lucas squirm as Sophia's ship sank was a deeply satisfying sight. Yet my final move, the move that would shatter them both irreparably, still lay ahead. Sophia had one last lifeline, the coveted leading role in a high-profile film directed by legendary filmmaker Robert Cantor, a film meant to mark her comeback. Rumors had circulated that producers were growing hesitant due to the negative publicity surrounding her, but no one had yet pulled the plug. I knew this project was the final pillar holding up her crumbling career, and it was time to topple it. One evening, precisely planned and executed with surgical precision, I anonymously leaked irrefutable proof of Sophia's secret affair with Lucas. Carefully edited audio clips, intimate photographs, and unmistakable security footage flooded social media overnight, showcasing the depth of her betrayal. Within hours, the scandal exploded into national headlines, devastatingly clear, undeniable, and mercilessly public. The film studio issued a statement distancing themselves from Sophia, immediately cutting ties with ruthless efficiency. Robert Cantor himself publicly announced that integrity mattered more than box office appeal, replacing Sophia swiftly with another actress. Sophia's humiliation was total and absolute. Without the film, her financial crisis deepened rapidly. Creditors seized her remaining assets, and her once glamorous lifestyle vanished overnight. Now forced into obscurity, she rented a tiny rundown apartment in Brooklyn, a stark contrast from the stunning penthouse I'd quietly purchased and redecorated, turning it into my personal trophy of victory. Lucas, terrified of the media, backlash, panicked, and began frantically calling my phone, now fully aware that I had discovered everything. "Emma, please," he begged through desperate voicemails. "We need to talk. Let me explain everything." I never answered those calls, savoring the anxiety that each unanswered attempt must have caused him. His impeccable reputation was badly damaged by association clients. Left his firm in droves, and his carefully built professional facade began cracking openly. Sophia, meanwhile, became a ghost of her former self, an isolated, broken figure shunned by her former friends. Ignored by colleagues, I observed from a distance, watching her struggle and fail to rebuild her shattered identity. I didn't revel in her suffering itself, but in the justice of it. She had once stolen my happiness. Now I'd taken everything she treasured most. her career, her home, and her reputation. One evening, as I stood alone on the balcony of the penthouse that had once been hers, gazing out at the glittering skyline, I allowed myself a quiet, triumphant smile. They had underestimated me, believing my silence was weakness, not strength. Sophia and Lucas thought I was just another victim, too, trusting, too naive. But now both were learning a bitter lesson about betrayal and revenge. Underestimating the silent wounded one was their greatest mistake. Yet even with this immense satisfaction, I wasn't done yet. There remained one final act, a public reckoning that would permanently seal their fate and ensure the world knew exactly who they truly were. The stage was set, the curtain ready to rise, and soon everyone would witness their ultimate downfall courtesy of the woman they'd both tragically underestimated me. There comes a moment in every revenge story when subtlety gives way to spectacle, when quiet whispers of sabotage erupt into a public storm. My moment had arrived. After Sophia's collapse, I carefully orchestrated a major charity gala, an event known throughout New York for drawing the biggest names and brightest stars. The gala had always been Sophia's favorite stage, a glittering night where she'd once reigned as queen. Tonight, it would serve as the final stage for her fall and Lucas's humiliation. Invitations had been dispatched weeks before, emblazoned with the promise of a major announcement by the evening's host, me. Predictably, curiosity drew the media's sharpest eyes and ears, each hoping to catch a glimpse of what the scandal-ridden Sophia Hart's closest friend might reveal. That evening, as guests arrived, the grand ballroom shimmered under sparkling chandeliers. The creme de la creme of New York society mingled in designer gowns and tailored suits, sipping champagne, blissfully unaware they were about to witness an unforgettable show. Sophia, desperate to reclaim a shred of dignity, arrived quietly wearing a gown clearly intended to remind everyone of the star she once was. But instead of admiration, whispers and side glances of contempt greeted her. Lucas arrived separately, his expression tense, clearly sensing something ominous in the air. From across the ballroom, I watched them closely, savoring their discomfort. Finally, the room fell silent as I stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. I scanned the crowd, pausing briefly as my eyes met Sophia's confused gaze. Her unease visibly deepened, instinctively sensing something dangerous was about to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I began calmly, voice resonating clearly. Thank you for joining us tonight. As many of you know, this evening's gala supports honesty, integrity, and accountability values we all cherish deeply. Polite applause rippled through the audience. Sophia shifted uncomfortably. Lucas swallowed hard, tension evident on his face. My heartbeat quickened slightly, adrenaline surging through my veins. The moment I'd meticulously planned for months had arrived. Unfortunately, I continued steadily. It's come to my attention that some among us don't share these values. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Curiosity intensifying, Sophia Hart, I said softly but clearly, watching heads turn toward her. Instantly, my dear friend, you're known publicly for kindness and sincerity, yet privately your actions speak differently. Sophia's face drained of color, her eyes widening in horrified realization. Lucas stiffened, jaw clenched. Behind me, a large screen flickered to life, displaying undeniable evidence of their betrayal. Security footage from my engagement party played vividly. Sophia and Lucas passionately entwined, their voices clearly, audible, cruelly mocking my trust, my loyalty, my love. Each carefully chosen scene delivered crushing clarity to every guest in the room. Gasps of shock filled the ballroom. Cameras flashed furiously. Reporters scrambled, capturing every reaction. Sophia's eyes filled with panicked tears. Lucas stared numbly, paralyzed by shame. I stepped forward calmly, voice now steel-edged. This betrayal has shattered my trust, but tonight it also ends the hypocrisy. The truth deserves its spotlight. Sophia suddenly stood, trembling visibly, attempting weakly to defend herself. Emma, please, this isn't fair. Fair, I echoed sharply, voice vibrating with controlled fury. Was it fair when you destroyed my engagement, when you stole the man I trusted most? You chose this path, Sophia. And tonight the world sees who you truly are. The room erupted into chaos. Journalists shouting questions, photographers snapping endless photos. Sophia turned frantically, seeking an escape, but finding none. Lucas tried desperately to approach the stage, calling my name, and hollow apologies drowned beneath the noise. I met his gaze steadily, eyes ice cold, my voice cutting through his pleas effortlessly. Lucas, save your apologies for someone who still believes your lies. The humiliation etched into his features was unmistakable. The proud lawyer now publicly exposed, his carefully maintained image shattered in seconds. Sophia broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, utterly defeated before the very audience who had once adored her. Security discreetly escorted her away, followed closely by Lucas, their disgrace complete and irreversible. I stood firm watching them leave, a quiet, calm satisfaction filling me. No trace of regret, only a deep sense of justice finally served. The murmurs gradually quieted as attention returned fully to me. Guests awaited my next words, the room heavy with anticipation. "My apologies for disrupting this beautiful evening," I said softly, regaining composure, eyes steady, voice poised. "But honesty demands courage, and tonight I found mine." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, unexpectedly inspired by my resilience, moved by the raw vulnerability they'd witnessed. It was no longer a story of betrayal alone, but of strength, dignity, and reclaimed power. Stepping off the stage, I felt lighter, liberated by truth, by courage, and by justice fulfilled. As I moved through the crowd, supportive hands touched mine, murmured sympathies, warmed my heart, and respectful admiration filled eyes that met mine. In a single night, I'd dismantled their deceitful empire, exposing every ugly lie beneath their flawless masks. But more than that, I'd reclaimed myself, my dignity, my strength, my freedom. Their humiliation was public, absolute, and devastating. My victory was elegant, precise, and unmistakably mine. As the gala resumed, music softly filled the room, and I smiled warmly, greeting guests with newfound confidence and serenity. My tormentors were gone, erased from my world by their own sins. But I remained stronger, wiser, untouchable. Revenge, in its purest form, isn't loud or violent. It's meticulous, patient, relentless. It doesn't just defeat, it exposes the truth beneath polished lies. Tonight the truth had spoken, and the world finally knew my story. In the quiet aftermath of my spectacular revenge, I discovered something unexpected about victory. Its sweetness fades quickly, replaced by a quiet, powerful peace. I no longer felt driven by anger or resentment. Instead, my heart finally found clarity. The world now knew who Sophia Hart and Lucas Gray truly were. Their deceitful empires had crumbled irreversibly, and justice at last was served. After that unforgettable gala, Lucas attempted several times to reach out, begging for forgiveness. Each plea went unanswered, not out of cruelty, but because forgiveness was no longer mine to give him. He had lost the right to my attention or sympathy the moment he chose betrayal. I moved forward without looking back, fully embracing the freedom my new life offered. Sophia, meanwhile, vanished from the spotlight, entirely retreating to some distant corner of obscurity. I no longer monitored her life closely. Knowing she'd forever live in the shadow of her disgrace was enough. Her career and fame had been built on lies, and now she would carry the weight of her own choices for the rest of her days. I refocused my energy entirely on myself, determined to rebuild from within. My professional reputation soared to heights I'd never imagined possible. Offers poured in from top publishers and media outlets eager to share my story. But rather than rush into any decision, I paused, reflecting deeply, carefully choosing my next step. After months of consideration, I published a deeply personal memoir, Shattered Glass Stronger Hearts, detailing my journey through betrayal, revenge, and ultimately healing. The book resonated powerfully, quickly becoming a bestseller. Women from across the country shared their own stories of betrayal, heartache, and resilience. My story, born from personal devastation, had transformed into a beacon of empowerment. In time, I became a speaker and advocate, sharing openly about the complexities of love, betrayal, and forgiveness. My public talks drew enormous crowds filled not just with curiosity, but genuine connection. Each event reminded me that strength comes not from revenge itself, but from reclaiming your dignity and peace. 2 years later, as I stood on stage at a prestigious women's empowerment summit, I found myself reflecting deeply on the past. I looked into the sea of faces before me, smiling gently as silence settled comfortably over the auditorium. Many have asked me whether revenge brought me true satisfaction. I began softly, voice filled with genuine warmth, and my answer is complicated. Revenge gave me closure, a sense of justice, but it did not bring lasting happiness.